Evelyn Harper never thought she'd set foot in Coldwater, Michigan, again. That town was nothing but gray skies, bitter memories, and scars buried deep beneath her polished life in Chicago. She'd built everything: her career, her independence, her carefully crafted routine to escape the weight of her past. But the past is relentless. It arrived in the form of an old, yellowed envelope, slipped under her apartment door. No return address, just her name written in trembling, familiar handwriting. Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside, a single sentence, scribbled hastily: "Your brother is alive. Come to Detroit." The words hit like a punch to the chest. Michael, her older brother who vanished 35 years ago when he was just 16. The town whispered he ran away, that the Harper family was cursed, that no good ever came from that house at the end of Hollow Creek Road. But Evelyn remembered the truth. She remembered the screaming, the sound of glass breaking, her father's rage that night, the smell of whiskey on his breath, and the silence that followed Michael's disappearance. For decades, Evelyn buried those memories under layers of indifference. She moved to Chicago, became a nurse, built a quiet, solitary life. If friends were scarce, relationships impossible, the weight of her family history never loosened its grip. But now, with one trembling sentence, the fragile walls she'd built around her life crumbled. Her brother was alive, and whoever sent that letter, they wanted her to find him. Despite every instinct screaming not to, Evelyn packed a small suitcase, locked her apartment door, and boarded a bus to Detroit. Her heart was a storm of fear and old wounds. The ghosts of Coldwater had finally come knocking, and this time, she couldn't run. The bus rumbled through the decaying outskirts of Detroit, rain streaking the windows like veins of rust. The city looked like it had been carved from exhaustion. Old factories with shattered windows, forgotten neighborhoods hollowed out by time, streets that whispered stories of survival and failure. Evelyn pressed her forehead against the cold glass, watching the unfamiliar landscape roll by. Her pulse was tight, her jaw clenched. 35 years of silence, and suddenly the past was clawing its way back. The address from the back of the letter was scribbled on a scrap of paper in her coat pocket. East Side. She didn't know Detroit, but she knew enough to understand. The East Side wasn't friendly. The motel she checked into was as tired as the city. Flickering neon lights, a sagging mattress, faded floral wallpaper that peeled at the edges. The heater rattled like it was coughing up ghosts. Sleep was impossible. By early morning, she found herself standing outside a rundown diner on Gratiot Avenue. The rain had eased to a mist, but the air was heavy with winter. The diner's faded sign flickered weakly. Ruby's Cafe. Inside, the scene felt frozen in time. Greasy booths, chipped coffee mugs, old men hunched over newspapers, waitresses with weary eyes and stiff smiles. The smell of burnt toast and stale coffee lingered in the air. And then she saw him. In the corner booth, partially hidden by shadows, sat a man, lean, older, with graying hair curling at his collar. His face was leaner, marked by time, but the eyes hadn't changed. They were Michael's eyes, but those eyes, they weren't the ones she remembered. They were heavy now, guarded, weathered, filled with years of fear. Evelyn's chest tightened as she approached. Michael's gaze lifted, meeting hers for the first time in over 3 decades. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Finally, his voice cracked through the silence, low and brittle. "You shouldn't have come." His words weren't a greeting, they were a warning, but Evelyn had come too far. She wasn't turning back. They sat outside the diner, behind the building where the dumpsters reeked and old cigarette butts littered the ground. The cold gnawed at Evelyn's fingers, but she barely noticed. Her pulse was thunder in her ears, eyes locked on the man she once called her brother. Michael looked thinner than she remembered, his skin pale beneath the streetlight's flicker, the lines around his mouth deeper. His eyes darted nervously down the alley, scanning for shadows that didn't belong. Evelyn waited, arms crossed, heart pounding. Her voice cracked the tension. "You disappeared. 35 years, nothing. And now this." She held up the crumpled letter, her hand trembling. "You're alive. You owe me more than 2 words." Michael's expression twisted with pain, shame, and something darker, fear. "I never ran away," he said, voice rough like broken glass. "I was forced to leave." The words hit harder than she expected. "Dad." Michael hesitated, swallowing hard. He was involved with people, Evelyn, dangerous people. It wasn't just drinking or his temper. It was deeper than that. Evelyn's stomach knotted. She remembered their father's outbursts, the bruises hidden under sleeves, the slammed doors. But Michael's words peeled back a truth she never wanted to face. That night his eyes glassed over, lost in memory. I overheard him talking. I wasn't supposed to. Deals, threats, money owed. Vince Calder, that name ring a bell? Evelyn shook her head, but the name carved itself into her mind. Dad was into something bad. Calder's people made sure I disappeared. Frank Delaney, Dad's old friend. He smuggled me out. Evelyn's heart fractured. All these years, she thought Michael abandoned them, left her to fend for herself in that broken house. But now, the truth spilled like gasoline. It wasn't just family drama. Ev, Michael whispered, voice cracking. It was life or death. His gaze hardened. Scanning the alley again, asterisk, and those shadows, they followed me. They're still here. Asterisk, the words sank deep. Colder than the Detroit air. Asterisk, Evelyn realized the past hadn't stayed buried. Asterisk, it had been waiting. Asterisk, the next morning, Detroit's skyline was smudged with gray clouds, and the air clung damp and heavy. Evelyn and Michael sat in his cramped apartment above an old pawn shop. Walls yellowed with age. Windows cracked, the faint hum of traffic below. Asterisk, a coffee mug trembled slightly in Evelyn's hands as Michael paced, unraveling threads of the past. Asterisk, you remember how Dad used to vanish for days? Michael's voice was low, hoarse with fatigue. He wasn't just drinking. Evie, he worked for Vince Calder. Asterisk, the name again. Vince Calder. It gnawed at her, a sinister echo from their father's hidden life. Asterisk, Michael rifled through a showbox of old papers, faded photos, brittle documents. Newspaper clippings yellowed with time. Asterisk, Vince ran cold water from the shadows. Drugs, extortion, people disappearing. Asterisk, Evelyn's pulse tightened. Her father's face stared back at her from an old photograph, younger, jaw clenched, eyes cold. Next to him stood another man, weary, slicked back hair, wearing a crooked smile that didn't reach his eyes. Asterisk, Vince Calder. Asterisk, Michael's hand hovered over another photo. A man with weathered features, kind eyes, cigarette hanging from his lip. Asterisk, Frank Delaney. Michael whispered, Dad's best friend. He helped me disappear. Asterisk, Evelyn's throat tightened. Asterisk, he sent the letter? Asterisk, Michael nodded, eyes clouded with doubt. It's his handwriting, but Frank's gone. Vanished months ago. Asterisk, Evelyn's heart sank. Frank, the man who risked everything to save Michael, was missing too. Asterisk, the pieces were falling into place, jagged and sharp. Asterisk, you think Calder? Asterisk, I know it. Michael's voice darkened. Calder's empire never crumbled. He's still out there, silencing anyone who knows too much. Asterisk, Evelyn stared at the photo of her father and Vince Calder, partners in shadows. Asterisk, the room closed in, memories pressing against the walls. Asterisk, the past wasn't dead. Asterisk, it had just been hiding, waiting for the right moment to strike. Asterisk, the rain hadn't stopped. Detroit's streets glistened with oil-slick puddles, neon reflections dancing in broken asphalt cracks. Evelyn followed Michael through alleys and side streets, her mind a storm of questions. Asterisk, they stopped beneath an overpass, concrete, pillars towering above them like sentinels of decay. Michael lit a cigarette with trembling fingers. Asterisk, you don't get it yet, do you? His eyes darted through the shadows. It wasn't just Dad. Our whole family's been tangled in this mess for decades. Asterisk, Evelyn clenched her jaw, pulse racing. Asterisk, we're not criminals. Asterisk, Michael exhaled smoke, bitter and sharp. Blood doesn't care about your intentions. Evie, our name, Harper, it's soaked in Calder's filth. Evelyn's stomach turned, her father's angry face, his late-night disappearances, the bruises, the silence. It all resurfaced like poison. Frank tried to pull me out, Michael continued, eyes distant. Told me Dad wasn't just working for Calder, he was enforcing Calder's rules. Beatings, threats, worse. Evelyn's chest tightened, nausea creeping up. Her childhood memories unraveled, exposing a truth far darker than she imagined. Her father wasn't just a broken man. He was Calder's blade. Frank wanted to expose him. Michael whispered, lowering his voice. The documents, the photos, proof. But Calder found out. Evelyn felt her pulse thunder in her ears. That's why Frank vanished? Michael nodded grimly. And now, they know you're here. They've been watching. Evelyn's hands trembled, rage simmering beneath fear. 35 years of silence, of believing she escaped her family's shadow, only to find herself back in its grip. I'm not leaving, she said, voice sharp, unwavering. Not until we tear this whole thing apart. Michael looked at her, the little sister he left behind, now standing taller than her fear. For the first time, a flicker of hope crossed his face. Then we do it together. But deep in the city's veins, Calder's empire pulsed, watching, waiting. They returned to Coldwater. Driving into town was like tearing open an old wound. The familiar cracked roads, peeling paint on storefronts, sagging porches, and the endless Michigan gray that blanketed everything in quiet decay. Evelyn's grip tightened on the steering wheel as they passed Hollow Creek Road, the street where everything fell apart. The Harper house stood at the end of the cul-de-sac, a weathered, sagging shell of what it once was. Paint peeled from the siding, windows were boarded over, and the front yard was choked with weeds. Yet the house still carried a pulse, a heavy, oppressive energy lingering in the air. Evelyn parked the car, her heart pounded in her chest like a war drum. "It's been empty for years," Michael muttered, eyes scanning the house. But not forgotten. They crept through the overgrown yard, broken branches cracking beneath their boots. The porch creaked with every step, the front door hanging crooked on its hinges. Inside, the house was frozen in time. Dusty furniture, old family photos shattered on the floor, wallpaper curling at the edges like dead leaves. Evelyn's eyes lingered on a photograph of her as a child, wide-eyed, hair in braids, standing beside Michael and their father, the man who wore two faces, loving in daylight, monstrous when the whiskey spoke. They moved cautiously through the house, every creaking floorboard a whisper of the past. In the basement, dust choked the air, but buried beneath old crates and forgotten junk, they found it, a steel lockbox. Michael's hands shook as he forced it open. Inside, old photographs, faded ledgers, and a manila envelope stamped with an unfamiliar seal. Documents, records, names. Proof. Frank must have hidden this before he disappeared, Michael whispered, flipping through the contents. Everything Dad tried to bury, it's all here. Evelyn scanned the papers, accounts, bribes, threats linked to Calder's network, and a list of names. People still alive, still entangled. Her stomach twisted. The Harper family wasn't just a victim of Calder's empire. They were part of it. And now, the truth was in their hands. But truth had consequences outside. Headlights flickered in the distance. They weren't alone. The headlights crept closer, slow and deliberate, their beams slicing through the overgrown yard like searchlights. Evelyn's pulse roared in her ears as she ducked behind the living room window, peering through a crack in the boarded glass. A black sedan idled at the curb, tinted windows, engine rumbling low like a growl. Michael grabbed the lockbox, his jaw tight. "They found us." Evelyn's heart twisted. Fear laced with adrenaline surged through her veins. But her voice stayed steady. "Who is it?" "Calder's men," Michael whispered, pulling her toward the back of the house. "They watch everything. Frank warned me before he vanished. Once you stir the past, they come." The floor creaked beneath their hurried steps as they slipped through the kitchen, out the back door, into the tangled weeds behind the house. The rain had picked up again, masking their footsteps as they pressed against the fence. The sedan's doors opened. Two men stepped out, broad, faceless beneath black hoodies, their movements sharp, controlled. Evelyn's breath caught. The taller man pulled out a flashlight, scanning the house's exterior, pausing at the shattered window. His voice cracked through the rain, low and chilling. "They've been here." Michael's grip tightened on Evelyn's arm as they slipped down the alley, hearts pounding in sync. The stolen lockbox tucked beneath his coat. Coldwater wasn't a town of coincidences. Eyes lurked in every shadow. The ghosts of their family's sins weren't content to stay buried. As they disappeared into the night, Evelyn's mind raced. They had the documents, the proof, the names. But now, they were being hunted, her brothers. Warnings echoed louder than ever. Blood doesn't wash away that easy. And with each step away from the Harper house, Evelyn knew the fight was no longer just for the truth. It was for survival. The old pickup truck rattled as they sped down the back roads, headlights slicing through the rain-soaked Michigan night. The lockbox sat between them, a heavy reminder of the legacy neither could escape. Evelyn's hands trembled on the steering wheel, her mind spiraling. "We can't outrun this," she whispered, voice tight with exhaustion. Michael stared out the window, rain streaking down the glass like veins of regret. "I've tried," he admitted, voice rough. 35 years of hiding, running, starting over. But it always circles back. Evelyn's eyes flicked to the lockbox, to the documents revealing their father's role in Calder's empire. Extortion, violence, names of people bought or broken. "We could burn it," she offered weakly. "Walk away." Michael's jaw clenched, the faintest shake of his head. "It won't end." His eyes met hers, raw, haunted. "They know we're alive. We either expose them, or they bury us next." The weight of their family's sins pressed heavy on her chest. For so long, Evelyn built her life on distance, from Coldwater, from Michael, from the bloodline that tainted everything. But now, The past wasn't just knocking, it had kicked down the door. They pulled off the road into a gas station, flickering fluorescent lights casting an eerie glow. Michael disappeared inside for coffee and supplies while Evelyn stayed by the truck, staring at the envelope in her lap. Inside were names: judges, officers, politicians, all connected to Calder's network, all complicit. Her father's name was there, too, his signature, his seal of loyalty to a criminal empire, proof that everything she believed about him, the violent outbursts, the fear, the disappearances, was part of a larger, darker truth. Evelyn's fingers tightened around the papers. We destroy this, we're safe, she whispered to herself. But safety meant silence. And silence meant Calder won. Michael returned, his eyes scanning the shadows. Paranoia etched into his features. We go to the press, he said firmly. Expose it all. Evelyn's stomach twisted. The choice clawed at her: a quiet life of fear or stepping into the storm. But some ghosts don't rest. And some truths refuse to stay buried. The next morning bled into a pale, cold dawn over Detroit's skyline. The rain had finally stopped, but the air clung heavy with unfinished storms. Evelyn and Michael sat inside an aging coffee shop downtown, a place dimly lit and hidden in plain sight. Peeling vinyl booths, chipped formica tables, the faint hum of a jukebox playing old Motown records. Across from them sat a woman, mid-50s, sharp-eyed, dark hair streaked with gray, wearing the hard expression of someone who had seen too much and survived. Detective Marla Briggsy. She slid the manila envelope across the table without touching it, her brow furrowed as she scanned the documents. Jesus Christ, she muttered under her breath, flipping through the evidence. Financial records, blackmail, Calder's signature stamped across deals that poisoned the city for decades. Evelyn studied Marla's face, watching the cracks of recognition deepen with every page. You believe us? Evelyn's voice barely masked her desperation. Marla exhaled sharply, fingers drumming on the tabletop. I've been trying to nail Calder for years. The man owns judges, cops, politicians, hell, half the force is scared of him. Michael shifted uneasily. Frank Delaney worked with you? Marla's eyes hardened, the weight of memory pressing down. Frank was my partner. Before he disappeared, he warned me, told me Calder's reach was deeper than we thought. Her gaze flicked to Michael. I thought you were dead. Michael's expression darkened. I almost was. The cafe's door chimed softly as a stranger entered, broad-shouldered, sunglasses, lingering by the counter. Evelyn's instinct screamed, we don't have much time, Marla whispered, lowering her voice. Once Calder knows this is out, he'll burn the whole city to find you. Evelyn's heart raced, eyes darting to the man by the door. Marla slid a burner phone across the table. You'll disappear again. New IDs, new lives. But first, we bring this to the press, leak it to the right people. Michael hesitated, the familiar fear tightening his jaw. Evelyn's pulse thundered, the weight of choice heavy in her chest. For the first time, they had a real chance to expose the truth. But survival had a price. And Calder wasn't done hunting. They left the coffee shop through the back alley, rain-slick pavement shining beneath dim streetlights. The city pulsed with quiet danger. Detroit never truly slept, and neither did the shadows that followed them. Marla drove a rusted sedan, weaving through side streets, avoiding main roads like muscle memory. Calder's been untouchable for decades, she muttered, eyes fixed on the rearview mirror. Every time someone gets close, they vanish. Frank tried. He had evidence, but he trusted the wrong people. Evelyn clutched the lockbox tighter, her fingers numb. The weight of the documents inside felt heavier than ever. Proof of their father's betrayal, of Calder's empire, of lives ruined and silenced. Frank's not dead, Michael said suddenly, voice low, sharp. I feel it. He's in hiding, or worse. Marla didn't argue. Her expression told them enough. Missing in Calder's world often meant dead. They reached an abandoned warehouse by the river, the building skeletal, walls tagged with graffiti, windows shattered. Marla parked in the shadows. This is where we leak it, she explained. A journalist I trust, off the grid, works in pieces that disappear into the right hands. Inside, the warehouse echoed with forgotten machinery and dripping water. A young woman waited by a battered table, laptop open, eyes alert. Evelyn scanned the surroundings, every creaking beam, every dark corner pressed on her nerves. They laid out the evidence, names, numbers, transactions, photos, each page a blade aimed at Calder's throat. But Evelyn hesitated, staring at her father's signature, his face frozen in time. "He made us part of this," she whispered, voice cracking with betrayal. Michael's eyes softened, pain flickering beneath the anger. "We didn't choose our blood, Ev, but we can choose to end this." The journalist copied the files, sending them across encrypted networks, every keystroke chipping away at Calder's empire. But the air thickened outside. Tires screeched. Marla's hand went to her gun. "We've been followed." Evelyn's heart hammered. They had ignited the storm. Now, they had to survive it. The warehouse walls trembled as heavy footsteps closed in outside, boots striking concrete. Sharp voices cutting through the night like razors. Evelyn's pulse roared in her ears. "Go out the back," Marla ordered, pulling her gun with practiced precision. Her eyes burned with determination. "I'll stall them." Michael grabbed Evelyn's hand, dragging her through rusted machinery and collapsed beams, the old warehouse groaning beneath decades of neglect. The journalist stuffed the laptop into a backpack, following close, her face pale with fear but focused. Outside, headlights flared, shadows shifting. Calder's men, armed, coordinated, ruthless. They burst through a side door into the alley, the cold air hitting like a slap. Michael cursed under his breath, eyes scanning the dark. A gunshot cracked the air, the sound slicing through steel and stone, followed by shouts. Evelyn's legs burned as they sprinted through the maze of alleys, rain slicking the ground, each step echoing with the weight of betrayal. Behind them, the journalist stumbled, but Michael caught her, pulling her along. They rounded a corner, only to stop dead. Two men stood at the alley's mouth, broad, armed, wearing Calder's mark like a badge of terror. Evelyn's heart sank. Trapped, but headlights blazed from the other end of the alley. Marla's car screeched to a halt. Door flung open, engine snarling like a beast. "Get in." Bullets ripped the air as they dove into the vehicle, glass shattering, metal groaning, the car peeling away into the night. Michael panted, blood on his temple from a grazing shot, but his eyes stayed sharp. "We have the evidence," Evelyn gasped, clutching the lockbox. "It's out there." Marla's jaw clenched, speeding through forgotten streets. "It's not over yet. Calder won't fall quietly." The city's lights blurred past, the skyline distant, Coldwater's ghost still chasing them. But for the first time, the truth was loose, and the empire built on fear was cracking. Evelyn met Michael's eyes, scarred, weary, but alive. They weren't done running, but now they were fighting back. Dawn broke over Detroit, thin streaks of gold piercing the dark clouds as the rain finally relented. The city exhaled, heavy with the storm's aftermath. Evelyn stood by the river, the skyline jagged in the distance, her reflection rippling in the dark water below. The leak had gone public. News outlets ran the story. Calder's empire, exposed, names, faces, crimes, once buried now plastered across headlines. The corruption, the money, the blood. No more hiding. Calder's grip on the city fractured overnight. But the cost was written on every bruise, every scar, every sleepless hour. Michael approached, jacket stained with dried blood, but his eyes held something new, defiance, and the faintest flicker of hope. "They'll come for us," he warned, voice low. Evelyn nodded, her fingers tracing the old lockbox, now empty, its contents a weapon unleashed into the world. "Let them," she whispered, across the river. Sirens wailed, rests, investigations, the machine finally turning against itself. They found Frank alive, broken, hidden for years under a false name, waiting for the right moment to strike back. His reunion with Michael was raw, fragile, a lifetime of regret crammed into tearful embraces and painful silences. But they had survived, not whole, not untouched, but alive. Evelyn closed her eyes, the weight of decades lifting from her chest. Her father's sins no longer defined her. She had chosen a different ending. "We don't run anymore," Michael said, his hand steady on her shoulder. Evelyn's gaze swept the city, scarred, battered, but still standing. "No," she agreed, softly, "we fight." The shadows lingered, but so did the light, and for the first time in 35 years, Evelyn Harper walked forward, not as a victim of her bloodline, but as its reckoning.